In architecture, obviously, tons of different types of buildings, residence, schools, medical facilities. The procedures in designing those are pretty much the same, and that's listen to the people. In West Virginia, if you can't be versatile, you don't survive in the architecture business.
I think that's one of the things that's interesting about Omni is we like to say that we don't specialize in anything. And really, as a West Virginia firm, it's very hard to do that. If all you did were elementary schools, you wouldn't do very many of them. There was a client of ours that said, there's a lot of architecture firms in the state of West Virginia, but Omni's just really led by a good bunch of people, and that's why I want to work with them.
First couple years working with Steve, he had this aura about him that he was very unapproachable and very intimidating. Once you got to know Steve, it couldn't be farther from how he actually is. Steve Barnum is a talented architect, a very successful businessman, and he believed that the best way to learn was just to go out and do it. He started the firm back in 1980, and Steve always talked about when he started the firm, he needed a couple architects, and he hired John Salson and he hired Dick Foran. And he always said Steve was the designer, Dick was the marketer, John was the nuts and bolts.
I came in February of 1983. Steve Barnum, brought me in basically as a temp. He didn't really have any full-time work, but he gave me a project. Was only really supposed to stay for about 3 or 4 months. Ended up staying for all these years. In the 90s, he decided to create a new management corps, asked me and Dick Foran to become principals.
Steve was always kind of ahead of his time. When I first started working here, everything was done by hand, and so we used pencil, paper, ink, and that's how we created all those old blueprints. So it was really exciting when he brought the first computer into the office, and we only had one, and it sat on Steve's desk, and so we all had to take turns using it and trying to learn how to use it.
That's when the fun starts. As far as I'm concerned, I enjoy that part, the technology part of the business. The funny part is that some of the people that worked for us who worked downstairs, my office was upstairs, they would come up and I would invariably hear them say, there he is, playing with that computer again. And I said, well, you see, someday this is going to be all you do. You're not going to have a need for pencils, and you're not going to have a need for vellum drawing paper and all of those other materials. Everything's going to be done on the computer.
One thing that Steve Barnum always wanted to take care of with the firm was forward thinking as far as technology, turning to AutoCAD quickly. And then when Revit came out, which is a game changer for our profession, we were one of the first firms, if not the first firm in West Virginia, to utilize Revit on a daily basis. I guess I came along at the right time with my education to be able to assist the company in making that transition from paper and pen to actual PCs.
We've had a couple of major shifts in our technology since I started at Omni. When I first started here, we were using 2D drafting. While they were great for the time, the technology has advanced, and so we've tried to keep up with that, and we were very early adopters of 3D modeling technology. A lot of people can't really look at a set of floor plans and picture what a project is going to be like, but everyone can look at a 3D rendering of a building or a walkthrough and understand it much better.
When we hired new people, we really looked at people that we could relate to and felt like a family, and we continued that way because we had to work close together. Architectural firms spend a lot of extra time working together.
Steve was one of those folks that if you wanted to learn how to swim, he would suggest that you just jump in the water and do it. And you know, by struggling, experiencing things for yourself, you retain that information.
A couple of years would go by and starting to get busy, we were in need of people. So that's when that all started. The firm started growing, started adding people. We moved from the Atrium Mall over to the Mansion Professional Building, and then remodeled the Mansion Professional Building so that we could have some decent offices outside of our little basement office when we first started.
It kind of got to a point where our firm was growing, and it made sense to get a little bit of a bigger space, and it made sense to bring it downtown. And the opportunity for that building downtown, of course, is a beautiful building.
Our offices here in downtown Fairmont in the former C.J. Maggie's building, which is originally the home of A.B. Fleming, and he became the 8th governor of the state of West Virginia. The building has gone through some modifications from the Flemings, obviously from the restaurant, took walk-in coolers and turned into conference rooms and into our library for our interiors department. But the building has really served us well in the time that we've been here, and I think will serve us very well on into the future.
Working in architecture in West Virginia is a little bit unique because we don't have a large number of registered architects in the state. What that means is there are opportunities to do all kinds of different projects. And so that's why Omni hasn't really been pigeonholed into being just an education-focused or just an industrial-focused practice. We really are able to do all kinds of different projects. So the variety that you can get into here in West Virginia is actually a nice thing. You know, it keeps you on your toes, but that's a good thing. It keeps it interesting.
Being from Fairmont originally, I kind of do my best to steal anything that comes in the door that might be local. East Fairmont Fire Station, which is where we are right now, was one of those projects that I kind of shoehorned my way in as the lead for. It was really my first big in-city project. There were a lot of challenges. It's a small site. It's kind of within a neighborhood on the outskirts of the commercial stuff, so it sort of needed to be a transition between those places, but still be a civic beacon, you know, as a fire station. So I was pretty excited about those challenges. During the ribbon cutting ceremony, the chief at the time, you know, said that we didn't really know each other as this thing started, even though we were a Fairmont firm. And by the time the project ended, he considered me a friend. That's what we strive for, is relationships, not just projects.
My last project was the First Exchange Bank. A really fantastic project. Most projects are fun, but that one was unique because they wanted it to have 3 faces. So it had to face the interstate, it had to face 250, and it had to face NASA Boulevard. So the design was to address each of those things and try to introduce the color, plus it's on a hillside. It was kind of interesting that you're relating to how people want to use a space, and that actually is a part of design, is every design is unique. You're trying to figure out what are you trying to accomplish, and then what are your options available to achieve that.
So we're now sitting here in what's called now the First Ward Apartments. This was originally the Elkins High School, and it was later used as a middle school and then as a book storage for the county system. We essentially took a classroom and turned it into an apartment using low-income housing tax credits. This building is on the historical register, won several awards, won a national award for preservation. I've done several of these throughout the state. One of the ones we did in the southern part of the state, we had an older gentleman come up that was interested in, renting one of the units when they were done, and he said, I taught math right here in this classroom. Kind of come full circle a little bit. He started his career teaching math there. That actual classroom is his apartment.
Like any parent, you're not supposed to have a favorite child, right? Because they're all unique and different in their own way. And with architectural projects, it's the same. But this Mon Power Regional Headquarters is absolutely my favorite project. There was a lot of opportunity that they provided us with budget, with trying on new things like all this outdoor space. And so we were involved in the project from the ground up. We wanted to bring in natural light, as much natural light as we could within the building. There were so many conduits and wires and utilities running underground. It's amazing. This is not a building that you can take and just plop down anywhere, which a lot of buildings do. And so being able to do something different and being able to see it as you get on the interstate is what I love about this job.
This project that we are in right now, the bridge in Bridgeport, it's a large recreation facility. We partnered with the city of Bridgeport, and it really kind of exemplifies all of those principles of why we use technology to such an extent in our practice. With our partners in the project from the design side, we were able to use the 3D models to collaborate together and look at how all of our models interact. It's also an aesthetic advantage to the project. We can use that same technology to walk through this building in 3D before it's ever built in the real world. And so that's what we did with this facility.
West Virginia and this area is a great place to live, a great place to raise a family if you can find a good job.
West Virginia is a community-oriented state. Everyone has a lot of pride in keeping things in state, and Fairmont's no different, keeping things in county or keeping things in city. I think Fairmont is a blank canvas for that. So, historically in the Coles heyday, at one time the report was that there were more millionaires in Fairmont per capita than any other place in the country. So what was left in the early 1900s were a good stock of buildings. The way the culture's changed, the way the area's changed, the way the economy has changed, that's kind of moved people out of downtown, but now kind of trying to move people back to downtown, and there's more opportunities than ever.
I think Omni's presence in the downtown is, we've been in business since 1980. We're a very stable Marion County, Fairmont business, and I think being located here, particularly at the foot of the connector, it allows our employees that live in Preston County and Mon County and Harrison County to reach the office in pretty good order. For the same thing, it allows us to get out to our clients much faster and to be there. So having that, and particularly we're kind of in the first fold of that skyline of Fairmont as you come down through, and particularly at night to see that Omni sign lit up is something to be proud of.
I think it's important to rehabilitate these old buildings because we can't make new construction to that level of detail really within a reasonable budget. So the only way we can keep these detailed structures alive are by going in and fixing them and doing work to fund them.
I think growing up here definitely makes me have a personal attachment to lots of projects that are in Fairmont or in West Virginia in general. Interning with Omni has definitely helped me make the connection between studies and real life practice, and then be able to see that translate into the community that I've grown up in. So it's been very encouraging as a young student to be able to see the work that you do directly translate.
You know, we hire a lot of, I say younger people, you know, compared to me, but they kind of think of me as their mom. They come to me with personal questions or business questions, and I'm able to help train them. They always say, how many kids do you have? And I'm like, well, look around. I've got a bunch.
We have some really good folks that are coming up and is just willing to try anything. So one of the things that we're looking forward to in the next couple of years is being able to change how we work on projects. What we want to do is to be able to develop and kind of create our own projects. So we would create the projects, we would design the projects, we would finance the projects, and then we would own the projects.
The recent retirees and the partners and owners before us did a great job of taking us to where we are now. So now some of the pressure falls to that next generation to find then the next generation of partners and owners that will continue to grow Omni. We don't hire people to finish a project or to be draftspeople. We hire people to someday run the firm.
I remember the last few times I went into the new building. The front door says Omni Associates and Steve Barnum, founder. I was pretty proud of that. But again, it could have said Steve Barnum, founder, and it could have had a list this long of all the people that helped me get that way. It wasn't me. It was just those people that all worked together.